Accessing.
When TV and radio collide.
Love it.
Wow. This is what you get. You're listening to JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars.
Don't touch that dial.
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, everybody, welcome back. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Alex Curie, Jeremiah Jensen, right here with you every day on the program. And it's always a fun thing for us to be able to get to the conference championship weekends. If you had in the cards that Washington would be playing Philadelphia for the chance to go to the Super Bowl, take that game to Vegas, man, because you're smarter than all of us out there. Joining us on the program right now, he's also smarter than all of us here as well. He is former Outlet Trophy winner.
Jason, why are you laughing?
And Jason Buck
Come
on the
on,
program.
man.
Jason, come on. Come on. You know that you're smarter than we are, especially when it comes to football.
No. I wouldn't ever do that to anybody. my dad would beat me for saying anything that wasn't humble.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, look, beating humility into somebody. That's
Right?
That's definitely the way of the farm kid. Let me ask you about what you first of all, like when Washington's making a run like this, and you're watching this whole thing. We were talking about how any point of them making the playoffs to now has just been gravy. There's some power in that where you just go, look, sky's the limit. Who cares? Nobody believes in us but us.
Right? Yeah, it's awesome. When you get a team that's just really come together in the locker room, like they're cohesive, they love each other, there's a brotherhood, there's no backbiting and snitching and, all that kind of stuff. When they really come together, man, it's magic, and that's what happened to me on my Super Bowl teams, and it'd be the same team that would go the next year and win 5 games. When it's going, it is going. So they're confident now and they're dangerous. Unfortunately for Detroit, they found out when the hot teams come in, they're playing like that. This is going to be one of the best games ever, playing that NFC East rivalry for the NFC Championship in Philly. I would love to be there.
You were a part of that great era in Washington football during the 80s and early 90s when they won 3 Super Bowls over a decade. How cool is it now as a player that won a Super Bowl there? You know those fans and how hungry they must be. How cool is it to see this team now 1 win away from going back?
You know what, dude? I lived in Cincinnati, great time. There are a lot of teams, but that D.C., that whole Washington, D.C. seaboard there, when that team's winning, it is insane. And I'm sure I would love to be there. And if they win this game, I'm going to really look strongly at getting to the Super Bowl if their goal, like I did the last Bengals Super Bowl.
As you see this, I mean, like you talked about the NFC East kind of divisional matchup, and we talk about how big of a deal it is for anybody to have to go into Philadelphia. That's a tough thing to try to win there in Philly. But there's a team like Washington or even like the Cowboys or the Giants who are like, well, we got to go in there once a year anyway, dude. Like this is something we're used to. And, in the overall history of things, like, the Eagles are kind of a new thing. Like they won their first title in forever. Just a few years ago. And so,
right.
And Washington is one of these teams that I just don't think are afraid to go into Philadelphia. It's not like they're going to go, oh, the fans in Philly, we're not used to that.
No, I don't see that at all. They proved it going into Detroit, the number 1 team in the NFC, and I don't see an issue with that at all. You're right. The rivalry, the guys that play in Philly all the time. If anything, if I was there, you would just, when you go play in those hostile environments, it's just, you feed on it almost as much as you do at home. I mean, I did. You love that thrill and the crowd going crazy. And I'm telling you, if Philly hasn't changed, that's one of the cruelest places to ever play with fans. The cruelest fans, I should say, that abuse you. I mean, it is quite the experience. I wish you could be on the sidelines there when their fans are going after the players, because it is awesome.
I can't believe it's been 33 years since the Super Bowl that you played with that team. And, you had a lot of sacks over the years at BYU and in the NFL, but was that sack of Jim Kelly in the Super Bowl, was that your greatest sack? What was that like?
Oh, I don't know if it was the greatest sack, but, because it's up there definitely, because One of Aikman in the end zone to win in RFK was just the timing of it was unreal with John Madden doing the game Sunday night. It put us in the playoffs. I mean, the stadium literally almost crumbled. I had people come up to me and said they'd been going for 30 years in the upper decks, the RFK games, and they said for the first time ever they felt the upper deck shaking and thought it was going to come down.
Wow.
And it was, so that one, but yeah, dude, the Super Bowl, you dream about it all your life. I got to Sac, Montana in my first one, and then this one, and it's like you're out of body spiritual experience, the adrenaline, but the visions of your family and your loved ones and your life of work. At least for me, you're coming up off that sack doing the war dance going crazy. And I know my wife's up there, and my children and my parents, and, just and family back in Idaho are watching, I freaking did it when, nobody believed you'd ever be there. I mean, everything's going through your head at that time. It's just an unbelievable experience, and it's like you wish you could do it every day of your life. But
Jason, one of the things that we always love to kind of reminisce about is just how hard in your era these dudes played, and just how hardcore. JJ and I were watching that Jim Kelly sack, and I thought, why would they make these guys play on pure sandpaper? First of all, when they play, right? I'm like, this is the highest level of the game, and you're out there on a quarter-inch of AstroTurf with tennis shoes on.
You're playing
on
concrete.
I'm like, and you're having to throw guys out there. He's like, no wonder people got so many concussions during your day. When you see what the level of play has gotten to back when you played versus now, what's the biggest difference between guys who played during your era and the guys who play now?
There's several things there, but like you said, we'd go out on fields and lift up the turf, that little quarter-inch, it was like trailer house carpet, and you'd lift it up, and it was black asphalt. I mean, literally, we were playing on asphalt, and you'd watch guys just run down on a kickoff, cut with nobody even touching them, to cut on their lane, blow their ACL. I mean, dude, it was so hard on us, and we hit to assassinate each other. I mean, there was no roughness away from the ball, man. If somebody had their ear hole looking at you and the play was 50 yards away, you would rip their head off. So, that's changed.
Well, you got through it. You got through it.
I go to my reunions, and our last reunion, man, we had, Russ Grimm had a leg amputated.
Whoa.
One of the hogs, another one of the hogs is really suffering from, dementia stuff. And, so I see some of my buddies really struggle. It's heartbreaking because, we just really we go full speed, game speed in practice back then. Now they don't even touch.
Sure. Well,
we do thousands upon thousands of concussive hits more than they do now. Because we do it in practice. They don't do that now.
In shells, right? You just the shoulder pads and the helmet on. You're blasting each other.
Gibbs would not lay off. Your shells on Friday, we're going to rip each other's head off.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Actually, the next question is about Joe Gibbs, and they showed him on the sideline. I was like so glad that he's there and that they're honoring him, and they're still kind of going, hey, let's look and remember the people who brought the best era of football here to Washington. One of the best coaches of all time, not just for that franchise, but in the NFL. What's the difference that a guy like Joe Gibbs makes in the locker room for a championship team? Oh,
it's priceless. You can't put a value on it. I was there with Sam Weish, when we got to the Super Bowl 23, and then Gibbs, and you can't even compare that. When you have a great leader that everybody loves and respects, and he disciplines correctly, people lived in fear of Joe but loved him at the same time. And, man, that is magic. So, he kept the rough guys that, loved the drugs and the wild girls and stuff in check, and said, basically everybody knew they were cut if they messed with that team. If you did anything disrespectful on the team, if you disrupted the locker room, if you didn't put your hand over your heart for the Pledge of Allegiance, Joe Gibbs would cut you. Wow. I mean, we ran and man, if that wasn't like everything American to me, toughness, Lombardi, Landry, and he actually coached with Landry. That was what I believe the true NFL was all about. And I love Joe. I would always model myself after him as a coach. I love the man, and I would die for him, play for him any day.
What was the difference then? You brought that up about the difference between. I mean, obviously, Joe Gibbs won you a Super Bowl, helped you win a Super Bowl ring, and then you fall short with Sam Weiss. So, what was the real difference between those two guys, aside from maybe the discipline stuff? But what were the core things that you're like, oh no, that's why Cincinnati wasn't winning a title?
Yeah, because of Joe Gibbs, we had a lot of just dearest friends of my life, obviously, on my Cincinnati team, just studs, many, but we had a much higher percentage of ruffians, there's a nice way to say it, that were never disciplined and never held accountable for doing really bad things around the team, and they'd hide it and just, look the other way and spoil them. So Sam wasn't consistent, right? He was he had like a bipolar schizophrenia. I don't know. We'd lose an overtime heartbreaking game, and he would practice us illegally full pads on Monday, the day after the game, and just beat the crap out of us. We would get slaughtered when, they'd hide it. And we go another meeting, the defensive coordinator yells out, Dick LeBeau talks to DBs and goes, hey, we got slaughtered in Houston, for example, on one night, with Warren Moon and everybody. And Weiss chews out the D-line and says we can't play football in the team meeting. And then we go into Dick LeBeau doesn't say anything. We go into the defensive room, and he says, I know for a fact I had defensive backs in this room with prostitutes the night before the game. If I ever hear that again, you're gone. We're not going to talk about it again. That's all was done, right? Well, we get our butts chewed. We lose 46-6, but all the guys know that. Well, how do you sack quarterbacks when the DBs are playing horribly and getting smoked? And they were not all of them, some of them, the significant starters were, getting prostitutes in their rooms. I mean, and dude, I'll tell you what, that never, ever, ever happened with Gibbs. I mean, a guy's pager back in the 90s went off in the meeting when he was talking. He said, pick up your books, report to the Grim Reaper. Well, I can't remember his name. We called him the guy that cut. And the guy picked up, and he was gone.
Wow.
I mean, and he ended up played many more years at Detroit, but, dude, Gibbs did. So, Weiss had his favorites, treated some people bad, some people good. He just he's a great offensive mind, offensive coordinator guy, but he needed a Joe Gibbs as a head coach.
Jason Bach, BYU legend, and of course, Super Bowl winner between Washington and Buffalo back in the day. We would love to see a Washington-Buffalo rematch again. And I'm sure the Buffalo folks want some version of retribution to at least beat maybe one of those teams they lost to in those in that 4-game.
Hey, just
4 years in a row.
Give us somebody not the Chiefs.
Yes, please.
Do you have Chiefs fatigue, Jason, or do you really love that team?
Well, I really love Andy Reid. He's a good friend. So I'm kind of partial to Andy, obviously.
Yeah,
but
sure.
He is a great guy. But I'm partial. I like the underdogs and the small city teams. So I do have a love for Buffalo, even though I've played them many times. And I don't know. It's that underdog thing.
Oh, yeah.
And so I favor Buffalo, over Kansas City that way. And then, of course, I'm mad at the Washington.
Look, that's who signed your checks, I guess, back in the day, right? So that's
right.
That's a hard one. That's a hard one to give up. Sure.
It's so personal to you. It's your family.
Yeah.
And whether you talk to Riggins or my Hogs or all my buddies, that 80-90% of us are like, no, we're
it's one of these moments where I think that you're able to at least you're able to at least kind of relive these moments, and I think it's all, like I said, this is all gravy at this point. You get Washington in, and they knew that everybody went, oh, that's nice. They made the, Jaden Daniels rookie season. They make the playoffs. That's nice. Dan Quinn, he's turning some things around there. But obviously, you change over an owner, it makes all the world of difference. And so, Jason, we appreciate it, man.
Does.
Thanks for all the time you always spend with us, and we're looking forward to this one again. And keep that physique up. You're still one of those guys. Looks like you could be in the WWE, man. So we appreciate it.
Well, I was in the weight room for a couple hours today, training. So I'm trying to be as good once as I once was.
There you go.
Right.
Jason, say hi to Roxy for us, man. And we miss
Thanks,
you, buddy.
Alex.
All righty.
You're the best, Jason. Appreciate
you.
All
right. We'll take the break here. We'll come back.